Welcome to the Revelation of Hope podcast with your host, Alvin Bonds II. Join us each week as Alvin explores the relationship between leadership and families by interviewing leaders in different fields all over the world. Alvin believes that the success of tomorrow's leaders begins with the success of today's families.
Hello, and welcome to the Revelation of Hope podcast. I am your host, Alvin Bonds II, and this is episode 14. Today, I interview Krystal Covington. Before I get to that interview, I want to talk just a moment about vision. You'll hear in Krystal's interview her discussion about the vision that she and her husband developed for their marriage and how that vision drives them every day in their relationship. So I invite you to reflect on your own vision. What is the vision you have for your life? What do you see for yourself? That's not just business, but personally, socially, emotionally, spiritually, in every area of your life. What is your vision? What are you working towards? What about your personal relationships? What is your vision for you and your spouse? What is your vision for you and your children? What about your parents? Let's say you are an adult, but yet you have parents who are living, or step-parents, or aunts and uncles, or just family in general. What is your vision for your family? And it's not good enough just to have a vision. What is your plan? What are your action steps to bring in that vision to life? An architect uses blueprints to outline the plan, the vision for creating a building. Afterwards, construction begins. So your vision is simply the blueprints for your life, whether it's your personal brand or it's a professional or business brand. Your vision is the blueprint. After you've created a vision, after you've created a blueprint for your life, for your business, for your practice, for your book, for whatever, what action steps will you take to bring it to life? And what will you do to maintain it? I am very, very grateful to be able to interview Krystal Covington for the podcast. Krystal is an expert in the art of influence and personal branding. She has led the launch of multi-million-dollar projects and worked directly with CEOs of small and large businesses. Krystal is a TEDx presenter, national speaker and trainer, and founder and CEO of Women of Denver, an impact-driven social enterprise association. Krystal has been featured in numerous publications, blogs, and podcasts, most notably Forbes and Entrepreneur on Fire. As an introvert, Krystal initially struggled to find success in the career world. As a result, she set out to learn the key strategies that make the most powerful people so magnetic to others. She studied social and evolutionary psychology, human connection, persuasion, charisma, and the art of war. Through her research, she was able to develop a simple strategy, proven over the years to provide consistent results, which she shares in her book, The 4 Keys to Influence. It's an honor to have Krystal here for the podcast. Krystal, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Let me ask you this question. How would you introduce yourself to a kindergarten class?
Oh, a kindergarten class. Oh, that's so fun. So, kindergartners, what I do is help people to stand out by getting the word out about what they do. We call that public relations or being a publicist. And I also have an organization called Women of Denver where I help women get together and talk to each other so that they can get everything that they want in their life.
That's pretty phenomenal. And I'm interested in knowing how would that introduction differ to a room full of business women? How would you introduce yourself to them?
Well, the way I introduce myself to a room full of business women is Krystal Covington. I am a publicist. I help people get the word out about their business and really find success in getting new customers and building that revenue. And then for Women of Denver, the organization is a really amazing opportunity for business women to connect, really engage in learning more about how to run a successful business or be very powerful in their career, and then learn how to achieve higher income and feel comfortable commanding what they're worth.
Wow. And interesting enough, both introductions are very, very similar. And I love that. and you have a way of connecting with people of all ages, and that's phenomenal. And I've read your bio online, but tell us the heart of Women of Denver. Where did that come from?
So the very heart of the program was really connecting. So I'm actually one day off from the anniversary of the very first event, and I really started the organization because I didn't have the connection I was looking for. I had my husband in a new land. We were from Detroit area, and we moved to Denver without any connections.
Yeah.
And so I was really missing that thing I had back in Detroit. And it wasn't that I really had a lot of friends there. I had an organization that I volunteered with, and that group had become my community. And so without that, and not really wanting to start a new volunteer organization because I knew it was a lot of work,
yes,
I started a group where I would sit down, and the origination was just sitting in a group together, and I would facilitate these deep conversations. So the very first event, I actually brought people together, strangers from Eventbrite.com, and we talked about the stories we tell ourselves, which is our limiting beliefs. What is it that we're telling ourselves that holds us back from achieving our goals?
Yeah.
And what can we do to change that? And that was the first conversation. So we can get lighter from there.
That's amazing. And I'm interested in knowing, where did this drive of connecting people, where did that come from?
It was just sheer loneliness, and knowing that for me, I'm a super introvert. That's what I call myself. Because when I take the test, I test quite off the chart. And what I find is that most networking groups, most organizations, when they have events, if you sit and listen to somebody talk, or they just put you in a room with some drinks and food and expect you to go and talk to people. And where do you go? You go, what do you do? Where are you from? Oh, the weather. And for me, I can't get anywhere with that.
Yeah.
So I leave with a bunch of business cards and no friends. So I had to do it differently, in a way where I could really find that connection and really feel something different, and find people that I could feel like I just wanted to feel like I had my people, and create what I had in that volunteer group that I was with in Detroit.
I'm an introvert myself, and as a counselor, I have an opportunity to meet and talk with different people. And there is this perception about introverts and, that we're just shy people. But it's not about shyness necessarily. How did you overcome that?
It's really funny. So this week I did a lot of networking because I'm really trying to grow things. And I've had a few people sit down with me and say, I really thought you were going to be bubbly and fun. And they're so surprised. They think I'm going to be, and I do, in pictures and in videos, and even when I'm on stage, I seem like this super bubbly person, and I am friendly. That's really who I am. But I have to just explain to people. So I do a lot of explaining, because otherwise they think, well, I'm not having fun with them. There's something about today. I'm not having a good time. And I just explain, well, I'm really an introvert. And so when I'm putting on a show, sometimes I seem super bubbly because I'm just trying to show the best of myself.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I really have limited energy to do things like that. And when I network, I just have to keep my pace so that I can still keep the energy throughout the day. And then they kind of get it. I explain what an introvert is, and that it's all about energy and not about preference. I don't dislike people. I love people. I'm not actually shy. I just lose energy over time when I'm talking to people over and over throughout the day. People understand when you explain it to them because they don't know what an introvert really is.
Yes, you're exactly right. And I see that for lots of the people I see in therapy, it's introverts and extroverts. And particularly when you have a spouse who may be one or the other different than the other spouse, having to explain to them introversion, and when they get it, it opens their eyes and then their perspective changes. Wow. What do you think about leadership?
So back to the first Women of Denver event I ever hosted, my father was there.
Okay.
So he was here in Denver visiting from back home. He had never been to Denver, and I brought him to my event. And he didn't even stick around. He kind of came for the beginning, and then he walked out to go and, do his own thing because he felt weird hanging around with a bunch of women. And then he kind of came back in towards the end. But as we were walking back home, he looked at me and he stopped and he said, "Nikki," that's my nickname at home. He said, "Nikki," and I didn't know this. He said, "But you're a leader."
Huh.
And it just rocked my world for my father to look at me and say that I was a leader.
Yeah.
And I think that, I'm sure I was a leader before then, but I think starting an organization where I, lead people to do something that's transformational, the way we talk and the way we communicate with each other is transformational. And they leave with a big feeling of positivity and connection. That makes me feel like I actually am a leader for the first time.
Wow, that's so inspirational. And the people in our support system, they see us and they understand, and so it's so powerful for your father to speak those words into your life.
Yeah.
How has your leadership developed since that very first Women of Denver conference?
I've gotten very specific and strategic about everything I do. I didn't realize, I've had some realizations over time about the power of leadership, and I just thought I could still do what I feel good about, what I want to do, and that's not always the case because people are watching me. Even minute things like what I share on Facebook or what I choose to like and comment on.
Yes.
When you do things like put that you're interested on an event, your audience sees that. So they see Krystal's interested in an event. And I've seen people that have a relationship with through my organization that I'm in a leadership relationship with think that there's something I'm running because I push interested in Facebook, announced it to them that I'm going to it. So I have to be very, very mindful about what I'm sending out there and everything I do. So I can't just tell people, "Oh yeah, I'll share this for you." I have to know that it's in line with what I'm doing. If I'm going to go speak somewhere, I need to know that it's in alignment with what I represent. And so that's a new level of leadership, is knowing that I'm an example to people. And there are people that are going to follow me to places. People go to events because I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
So that's a very different thing. It's something, I was never a popular kid. So that's a new thing for me, and being in that position. And then even just really knowing that I need to be clear on the messaging when I'm talking to the people that I'm working with, even when I'm working with people one-on-one on their businesses. They're taking it to heart because they trust me as the leader that they've hired to help them to succeed. So I need to be very clear. I need to be extremely thoughtful because they might take every piece of advice that I have. And if I give them that advice, that means that they lose money. And that's a very serious responsibility.
What I love hearing you explain that this journey of personal individual development that you have in fine-tuning your leadership is that's your branding. And I love that what you do is what you're living. You made your branding very specific and consistent, and you've been featured in publications such as Forbes, Fast Company, and even interviewed on Entrepreneurs on Fire. How do you maintain that consistency? That wherever you are, your message is consistent. How do you do that?
I mean, I'm really just being myself, but trying to make sure that I always portray the best version of myself. That's how I kind of think of it, is some people look at it like you're being inauthentic if you don't put every single thing you're feeling out there into the world.
Yeah.
But I look at it as, people need to be inspired by the best of me. So at some moment of the day, I may not be feeling good. I might feel, terrible, but I'm not going to go to the internet, or I'm not going to get on a podcast interview, or I'm not going to go, and talk out into the world and say, oh, everything's terrible. I, wish I had earned this amount of money today, but I didn't. I wish I had, washed my car today and I didn't. If I walk around complaining everywhere about all these little things, then people wouldn't feel what I want them to feel. So I stay connected to what I want people to feel when they're around me. I stay connected to the results I want people to receive when they're working with me. I stay connected to who I want to be remembered as.
Yeah.
And so when you do that, when you keep that in your vision, you keep putting out there what you really want out there. When it's deeply connected to your vision of self and your vision of the future, it's not that hard.
Yeah. That's spectacular. And you mentioned moving to Denver with your husband. I'm interested in knowing, what does leadership look like at home with you and him?
So he did an amazing job. So I wouldn't say that I knew early on in our relationship how to be in a relationship. I'd never really been in one, and I didn't know what it looked like. And he had a great vision in the very beginning of what he wanted us to look like. And things that feel basic now, which are just talking about things, he led me to do. So he was an amazing leader in the very beginning of our relationship and teaching, hey, Krystal, it sounds like something's going on with you today. Can we talk? And I say, no, I don't want to talk about it. He said, well, people in a good relationship should talk. We should always discuss things. And I thought that you could go without talking. I thought that, if you're just having a bad day, you don't have to tell anybody.
Yeah.
You can just go to bed. And that's not the way that we work now. We don't just go to bed. We talk about everything. And so that leadership helped us to be an amazing relationship. And the thing is that over time, we've been together for 14 years, I think. We met in 2003 when I got to college, and we've stayed together this whole time, and we've been married for 9 years. So over that time, we kind of switched places a lot. There's a lot of switching between people because sometimes he's having a tough year or sometimes I'm having a tough year. And over that time, you have to both take the lead.
Yeah.
So somebody has to take the lead in any given transition throughout the relationship. That has taught us both to be able to have strong leadership and to be able to know how this relationship, and we always keep that vision at the core of what we want to look like. That vision that thankfully he set early on of what our relationship should look like, and then we both taken part in evolving it and saying, okay, well, we're having a transition, like at a certain point when we both were these executives, and we had to realize, okay, well, this is a very different life for us, and we have to make sure we don't lose ourselves in it, because it's very easy to come home and gripe about what we've been through and try to mentally transition from business decisions to cooking dinner and trying to spend some time watching Scandal. So we have to lead each other through that, because for both of us, that was a new experience. Neither one of us had a vision of what it would look like when we get to this point in our lives. We didn't even know what it meant. So that's something that we have to go through. And I'm sure for some people, things like counseling probably help to make sure that somebody's there. If you don't have that vision yourself, have somebody help you create that vision, that you can live the life you want.
And I just appreciate your transparency and your openness, because many people struggle in relationships for different reasons. And what I love that you mentioned is that it's fluid. Your relationship is constantly evolving, and you all are growing and learning together. And that's the part, as a marriage and family therapist, that people struggle with. So I really do think it's helpful for people to see learning never stops. And we constantly grow and evolve together. What would you say was most helpful in helping you to adapt and your vision evolve in your marriage? What was most helpful to you?
I think it all starts with stopping. So you have to take a breath, step back and realize something isn't what it was. And when you realize that, then you stop and you have a conversation. And there's nothing to be blamed on either party saying, oh, I don't feel like we're connecting. There's got to be a reason why. But never stopping and saying, I don't feel like we're connecting. I think it's because you're grumpy. I don't feel like we're connecting. I think it's because you got this new job and you're acting different. So you don't do that. Never placing blame, but just stopping to assess. And then asking, well, how can we do this better? How can we do a better job of making time where we're focused on each other? How do we do a better job of making sure that we eat together once in a while? Because we like that, right? You still like that, don't you? Just being inquisitive and not being grumpy or blaming and making sure that you tap into that before it gets too far, because then it becomes habit. The farther you get into something that you do all the time, it becomes a new trend and habit in your life, and it will take a lot longer and a lot more work to transition out of it if you let it get that far.
And what's so powerful is that what you're talking about, what you're describing for your marriage is applicable to everything. And I see that thread throughout your business and stopping and assessing and evaluating, is my strategy effective? What is my focus? What's my vision? And I love that you have authored a book, The 4 Keys to Influence, and that's available on Amazon. Tell us where that came from. How did you create that?
Honestly, I did not intend to have a book. I thought it was dorky to have a book. I remember my husband wrote one years ago when he started doing coaching and training, he was doing corporate training, and I said, oh, he has this fancy book. It was just so thick. I thought, well, gosh, who's going to read that? And that's just I was not there yet. I was, but it was a beautiful book, and I made the cover. But the creation of my book, I still wasn't thinking in that way. I wasn't thinking I want to have a book. I just knew I was teaching these trainings, and I would bring people a worksheet, but that worksheet started getting 2 pages, then 3 pages. And then I said, okay, this is getting expensive to print at Kinko's, and it's still not enough. So I felt like people needed more to work with. So then I started working on the workbook and trying to find ways to print it. And I was initially just going to, make the workbook as, spend several pages with some explanations so people can go home with it. And I was going to print it at Kinko's, or I found this website called lulu.com where you could print things. And then, I started realizing that the best pricing was on CreateSpace, where Amazon publishes books. And so then I realized, okay, well, I need to make it look really nice. So then I got somebody to sign the cover. I had my husband help me think of, more things that I can share in the book that would make it worthwhile for somebody to buy as a book. And we kind of fleshed out my story a little more, talked about that. And I still didn't want it to be long, because when I get books and when I go to workshops and people give me books, I don't read them.
Sure.
I get people's books all the time. It's very nice. It's a great gesture, but I don't have time to read random books. If I'm going to get a book, it's one that I really wanted, and I have limited time, so I only focus on those. So I didn't want to be giving people that. So I still kept it very short, but made it more substantial so that people could get some lessons out of it, have something to work with, like a tangible working guide to help them. And I put it on CreateSpace, and lo and behold, people started buying it without me really promoting. I still get those little checks. Well, they come through email and say, we're sending you so-and-so amount of money. And it's always surprising. I'm like, people are still buying this, and I didn't promote it. It's really just, it actually benefits people. And it was a surprise to me, honestly, because I just looked at it as a working tool for my workshop, but it became something that was more. And what's really funny is I'll have meetings with people sometimes where I don't do many coffee dates because I just don't have enough. Like I said, my time is limited, and I have to be careful with it.
Yes.
But sometimes there are people that really needs some support, or just really, I like them too, and I really want to connect with them. And sometimes they'll come, and it's often women, because I have a women's organization and a big following of women, and they will sit down and they will pull out their workbook from their purse with all their scribblings in it and ask me questions. And it is the most beautiful thing, because that tells me that it was worth saving.
Yes.
They've written in it, they're using it, and then they have questions, which means that it engaged them in conversation and deep thought about where they're going and what they're trying to accomplish. And that's the biggest pleasure of my life, is knowing that what I put out there has tremendous value for people, and not just a one-time throwaway value, but a long-time keeper. This is still a useful tool over time sort of value, which is it means a lot to me.
That is so powerful. And what stands out to me the most when you describe that is you recognize what works for you and what doesn't work, and you created something along those lines, and that resonated with people and continues to resonate with people, and that's extremely powerful. And one of the things that I do when I work with families is finding some of the common grounds, or finding something to help encourage them and help guide them. And what I see is the importance of healthy relationships. And what I believe personally is that the success of tomorrow's leaders begins with the success of today's families. What do you think about that?
I love that. I really appreciate that you have. I feel like it's very valuable that you have a statement like that, because I'm sure it guides you in all of the things that you do with your clients.
Yes. Yes. I just appreciate you taking the time for this interview. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, if they ever want to get in touch, please reach out. I love receiving emails. They can email me at connect@krystalcovington.com, Krystal with a K, and just say hello. Ask the question if you have anything, or if you just want to chat and let me know that you heard me. I'd love to hear from you.
I love it. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, as well as providing a rating and review. Every week, I will interview a different leader and invite them to share with us their views and perspective on the relationship between leadership and family. Be sure to visit my website. It's www.alvinbonds2nd.com. That's ALVINBONDSII.com. Have a great day.